There's a new poll out this morning that shows that Labour is only 4 points ahead of the Conservatives in terms of the public's voting intentions. Why is that margin so close when the Conservatives are tearing lumps out of each other in this leadership contest?
Well, there'll be lots of different polls that we can look at. And of course, they've been going up and down. Let's not forget that Labour's had a 14-point lead as well. But what we've got actually, essentially, is we've got two Conservative candidates, as you say, taking lumps out of each other. All the while, the state that we find the country in is really as a result of their decision making in the last sort of government that we've had, but we've had the Conservatives in power for 12 years. I mean, this week alone, we saw that the government is saying that it's going to miss its own targets in terms of the NHS waiting list. We now have 6.6 million people on the waiting list for planned care. I mean, that is the largest number on record. And, you know, the other thing, as you say, you know, basic government functions are clearly not working. We've had the delays in terms of lorry drivers. I've had numerous constituents contact me, as I'm sure MPs across the country have, around delays in passport. Tens of thousands of people are waiting over 10 weeks. And we've also seen the court backlog rise from 43% in the last 5 years. And so, yes, of course, the Conservatives have created backlog Britain, and both of the leadership candidates, Rishi and Sunny, they're not talking about these issues that are taking place. They haven't got a plan as to how they are going to address this, which is making life very, very difficult for lots of people. And of course, what the country needs is Labour. I mean, Labour is the fresh start that Britain deserves.
Well, but what I'm saying is that the polls don't suggest that people back you on that. If the country really is in such bad shape, if it really is backlog Britain, and in the meantime we've got this ferocious leadership race, why isn't Labour romping ahead in every poll?
Well, I think we are. Look, there'll be consistent polls, won't there? And of course, when you have a leadership election, there'll be a bounce, no doubt, for whoever wins for a short period of time. But let's not forget, the country hasn't forgotten. I mean, at the moment in time, nothing seems to be working. And you know, there is crisis upon crisis. And all the while, you know, you've got two candidates that are too bothered about, you know, appealing to their sort of members as opposed to addressing the cost of living crisis. Labour has put forward lots of credible things, actually, that could be done immediately to sort of get inflation steady, cutting VAT, for example. The government just hasn't got a plan. I think it's just unacceptable. The leadership that's being provided is actually being provided by the Labour Party.
Well, Rishi Sunak has promised to cut VAT on energy bills. And you talk about the economy. The Bank of England is expected to raise interest rates today, possibly by as much as half of 1%. So tell us what Labour would do to help vulnerable families for whom that could be a further squeeze.
Well, you can't just have tax cuts and not have a plan for growth. I mean, we know that either that will mean that you'll have public finances spiralling out of control, or you're going to have to make cuts to public spending. And neither of those two options are something that we can afford in this country. But as you say, rising inflation is really hitting so many families, you know, very, very hard. But the low wage spiral that we've actually seen is not something new. It's actually the result of 12 years of the Tory mismanagement of our economy, where living standards or real wages have failed to absolutely grow. So taking VAT off energy bills would absolutely push inflation downwards. This is something that Labour has been calling for, and the government could do that immediately. It would steady inflation, as you say. It will actually put more money in people's pockets. The very fact that we have low tax and high growth economy is, rather than raising taxes, rather than wasting billions of pounds of taxpayers' money, as this government has been doing, they should have been taking steps to boost the economy and to grow the economy. And absolutely, Labour has a very credible option in terms of making sure we have an active industrial strategy, with a skill strategy, that we focus on growing those industries so we can create those jobs of the future. That is what it would require to grow the economy.
We've just got a little bit of breaking news, actually, that's just come into us. Ofgem, the energy regulator, has just confirmed that the energy price cap is going to be confirmed, it's going to be updated quarterly rather than every 6 months, as happens at the moment. It's warned that customers face a very challenging winter ahead, something that we are, of course, aware of. So your response to that, is it a good move that Ofgem updates the price cap every quarter rather than every 6 months?
I mean, it's basically, we know that the prices are going to rise significantly and they're going to continue to go up. So actually reporting by 2 months is actually giving the government, you know, a heads up to say, what is it that you are doing to supporting people? What the government shouldn't be doing is giving tax breaks to oil and gas companies who's made huge amounts of profits of £4 billion. What Labour is calling for is that the government needs to be supporting those families that are going to be hit this winter, those families that are really, really struggling. That money could absolutely support them in supporting their families. The government hasn't just been able to come up with a credible offer.
I want to get your view on the situation in Taiwan. You are Shadow Cabinet Minister for International Development. Do you welcome Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan?
Look, I mean, Nancy Pelosi's decision to go and visit was a decision of hers. And of course, she said this is about solidarity. And we've seen the response from China being quite significant. I think we all want to see sort of dialogue, really, want to see peaceful moves to address the issues across the Taiwan Strait. We've been very clear about our serious concerns with China's sort of increasingly aggressive action towards Taiwan and the attempts to intimidate its democratic leaders. But I think the actions are really part of a wider pattern of China becoming much, much more assertive. But the issue we have is that we've got a government that's very divided on how to actually approach China. It's got no clear strategy. And, you know, both Liz and Rishi have actually had a record of chronic inconsistency, I would say, around China. So we've got to absolutely be clear. We've got to be working with China. We know that it's important in terms of trade. But, you know, we've got to also support Taiwan because, you know, on issues of global health, it is absolutely right. It has a seat on the table in terms of the WHO and other institutions.
Well, how worried are you about the fallout from Nancy Pelosi's visit and what China might do next? And you talk about supporting Taiwan. What form should that take as far as Labour is concerned?
Well, what Labour has, you know, what we have said is that we will take a strategic approach to China in terms of standing firm on our principles and interests and managing the differences that we have. China, we recognise that, of course, we've got to do trade with China. We've got to work on the big issues of climate, of global health. We just can't, you know, do it alone without their support. So I think that's important. In terms of how worried I am, I think, look, let's wait and see. I mean, you know, it is early days. I think the Chinese also want to reach out and hopefully engage in some form of talks. I think that this can be the opportunity to start to see if that is very possible, but let's wait and see.